7 years ago, we met in this room during an annual meeting. And if I were to look back 7 years ago to now, I would never imagine that things would have evolved. So where to evolve in 10 years? I don't know what's happening tomorrow.
I think, you know, the industry that we're in is so wildly different now to where it was even then. And we knew it was changing very rapidly then. We had no idea where it was going, but we felt the change.
I mean, a real prime example is when the photographers went to Iraq. When Bush went to Iraq and the guy threw the shoes at him, you have the 3 wire photographers there. And there's this whole thing for the poor wire photographer. I did a whole book on covering the presidents called My America. So I would go in the event, the president would be on the stage, I would leave. I'd go outside, I'd go around, take pictures, but they could never leave because if something happens to the president, they're out of the job. And sure enough, they come in, Kevin Lamarck from Reuters is trying to get position in the back of the room, and Evan Vucci's getting on the floor, and all of a sudden, whack, a shoe flies by, you know. And they look up, and but nobody got a photograph of the shoe. Evan Vucci from AP got a frame of when he threw the second shoe, but it's of the guy throwing the shoe. And they almost fired him. You know, he got, it's like, because you've got to have the camera on the president. You know, so they're under so much pressure. There was a Charles Omany, the Newsweek photographer. If we were there, we would have been out having drinks. And we never would have seen it.
But this was kind of the key image from the project, and I don't know whether you know the story behind this. Why would you? I'm not as well known as Aidan made out. But this kind of summed up alcohol in Britain for me. If you have the right amount, you're the people on the right. And if you have just a little too much, you're the man behind. And you know, it kind of said to me, ultimately, alcohol is classless as well. Whether you're drinking cider at the beach in Cleethorpes or Bollinger at the Epsom Derby, drink too much, and the result is the same.
You know, there's so many genres. There's so many. Everyone's a photographer now, and digital has freed up so many people to use cameras and be authors. You know, and the world's your oyster as a photographer. I mean, young photographers, it's really up to them. So this is Sniper Alley, and this exhibition is looking back over the last 25, 30 years and just putting together a gentle selection of images. It's called Perspectives because at a time when the whole world will be centered on London and sport, and it's going to be a great party, and it's going to be fantastic. I just want to remind people that there are people around the world who don't have access to medicine and water and clean water and healthcare, etc., etc. So this is designed to just to kind of remember that, you know, there's a lot of people out there who don't get the same advantages that we do.
Just before Tim died, the very, very last journal entries that he made in Misrata were consumed with the idea of the relationship between beauty and truth. Whether it was possible to be both beautiful and truthful in the work that you created? Was it possible to be authentic and credible and also produce a work of beauty?
For me, I mean, it was really important to be part of this project. I was actually just coming out of intensive care myself when I heard about Tim and Chris dying, and although I didn't know them personally, obviously was very aware of their work, and I think it just hit home a lot. Just again for me, just how close I'd been, and just the sacrifice that they had made, and I think what was going through my head a lot at that time was not so much what had happened to me, but how much it affects those people around you, and seeing my family pretty devastated by what had happened, and nearly losing me, and realizing that what must be going on with Tim and Chris's family, and just the impact of all that. And I think the guilt that you have when you go through an experience like that, I would say you basically take everybody you love and you upset them in one moment. And the big question that coming back to me was I there for the right reasons? Was I doing this work? Was it important to put through so many people through pain and through upset? You kind of start to question the whole reason why you've been doing that work for 10 years and going to those places.
Before we answer that, I just want to try a little experiment here. Can we have a show of hands of who finds the supply of a narrative with the image to be a good, useful and beneficial thing, as opposed to people who would rather just come to the image as a standalone image with a very minimal caption to it? Who would rather have a fuller narrative from the photographer with the image? Almost unanimous. Almost. Not quite. Right.
How many photographers put their hand up then, though?
That's a very good question. That's a great question.
Yeah. Can you put your hand up if you've never taken a photograph? 100%.
The images are really powerful in their own right. I don't deny that. But as someone who is curious, and they are very powerful, I want to know who the people are. I want to know the story. That's the point. And it raises so many questions. You've done your job as a photographer. You've made me want to know what's going on.